We're about to begin the service for Mrs. Burnstine. I would ask that any of you who have a cellular device to please turn it to the off position. Officiating our service today from Congregation Am Shalom will be Rabbi Stephen Stark Lowenstein and Cantor Andrea Ray Markowitz. From Congregation Darchei Noam of Glenbrook will be Rabbi Daniel Fox.
Shiviti Adonai l'negdi tamid. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exalt, my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful one see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is our gift. We make a small little tear in a Kriya ribbon to remind us of our hearts that are torn. Only direct mourners are obligated to tear this ribbon. In the Jewish tradition, direct mourners are children, spouses, siblings, and parents. Even if you hired the best seamstress in the world to repair that ribbon, there would always be a mark. There's no way to ever repair this ribbon without showing that there's been a tear in this ribbon before. And I think that that's symbolic of your hearts, that will always know that your mom, that Helen was, is, and will always be a huge part of all of your lives. And as we begin to offer these words of blessing, I ask the two of you to please rise, to know that there are so many people behind you, next to you, in front of you, and on Zoom who will help you along this path. For no one can walk this path alone. And so as you walk this path together as siblings, as you walk this path together with your families, know that there are so many people that will help you. In the Jewish tradition, we say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan ha'emet. We praise you, God. Dayan ha'emet, the judge of truth. For it's God's judgment that has ultimately taken her. And we accept that. Biyado afid ruchi. Into God's hands we entrust our spirit when we are asleep and when we are awake. And we shall never, never be alone.
Biyado afid ruchi. Betishan ve'ayira ve'im ruchi keviati Adonai li ve'lo ira ve'im ruchi keviati Adonai li
Ecclesiastes said some 2,000 years ago, the dust returns to the earth, the spirit, the soul returns to God. It's only the house of the spirit which has been placed within this casket. It's only the house of the spirit, the vehicle that housed her soul, that we return to this family burial plot. Because Helen was strong and determined, fiercely independent. She was deliberate, she was loving. She possessed such incredible pride for her children, and especially for her grandchildren. She lived the words of a woman of valor. She made this world better. She made this world more beautiful by her incredible glasses. And she made this world so much fun for everyone who encountered her. And so, as we gather with the congregation Darchei Noam, as we gather with Rabbi Fox and with Kenner Markowitz, we find comfort from the words of our tradition, as you'll soon hear from family members, just how special she is, was, and will always be. We find comfort from the words of our tradition, from the sacred words of the psalmist to modern words as well. Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. And here at Westlawn Cemetery, when we lift up our eyes to the sky, we usually see planes headed towards O'Hare. So when we lift up our eyes, no matter what we see, no matter who we see, we find that strength of something greater than ourselves. 121, Psalm 121, the words are so beautiful.
אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעם אדוני, עושה שמיים שמיים וארץ. אל ייתן למוט רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל, אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמר צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם.
Rabbi?
As mentioned, we often turn to the words of King David and his writings in Psalms, both during happy times and sad times. So I'll read Psalm 1 in Hebrew. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach b'atzas reshaim, u'v'derech hata'im lo amad, u'v'moshav leitzim lo yashav, ki im b'soras Adonai chefzo, u'v'soraso yegeh yomam v'layla. V'haya ke'etz shasul al palgei mayim asher piryo yitain b'ito, ve'alehu lo yibol, v'chol asher ya'aseh yatzliach. Lo chen harishaim ki im kamotz asher tidefenu ruach, al kein lo yakumu rishaim b'mishpat, v'chata'im ba'adas tzadikim. Ki yodea Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech reshaim toved. I'll read from the book of Proverbs, from Sefer Mishlei, the writings of King Solomon. This is from chapter 31, the Eishes Chayil song and prayer that many Jewish husbands sing to honor their wives each Friday night, and that we sing to honor the life of a wonderful Jewish woman, wife, mother, grandmother. Eishes Chayil mi imtza v'rachok mipninim michra, batach ba'lev ba'la v'shala lo yachzar, gemalasu tov v'lo ra kol yemei chayeha, darshat semer ufishtim v'tas b'chevet kapeha. Ha'isa kaniyos zocher mimerchak tavilach ma v'takam biod laila v'titein teref, levesa v'chok lina'aroseha. Zamamas hadevet tikacheu mipri chapea natakarem, chagar bioz masna v'teametz zroseha. Tama kitov sachra lo yichbe balayla neira yadeha shilcha v'kishor v'chapea tamchuf alech kapa parsal liani v'yadeha shilcha le'avion lo sira levesa mishaleg kichol beisa lavushanim marvadim hasasala sheish v'argaman levusha noda b'shirim ba'ala b'shivto im ziknei aretz sadi nasasa v'timkor v'chagor nasna le'kanani oz v'adar levusha v'tischak liyom acharon pia pascha v'chachma v'soras chesed al leshona. Sophia halichos beisav alecha matzlus lo sochel. Kamu vanea vayashura ba'ala vayahalela. Rabos banos asu chayil viat. Alis al kulana. Sheker achein vehevel ayofi. Isha yiras Adonai hitis halal. Tinu lami priyadea vihalelua bashiari masea. I just want to mention a couple of those lines in English as they struck me as being particularly relevant and especially connected to today's ceremony. A gallant woman who can find far beyond pearls is her worth. Her husband's heartfelt trust is in her, and he shall lack for nothing, as was described so often yesterday, the trust that husband and wife showed for each other. With vigor she girds her loins and strengthens her arms. She discerns that her enterprise is good, her lamp does not go out by night. Her children, as we will hear soon, as mentioned, arise and praise her, her husband and he lauds her. Give her the fruits of her own hand, and let her deeds praise her in the gathering places. Finally, Psalm 23, I will read in English. A song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures, God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days.
We extend our deepest condolences to Helen's family, to Janet and Louis, to Mark and Jean, to Lauren and Zusi, to Marcy, to Jill and Adam, to Jeffrey, and of course to Sparky and Charlie, to her parents, Morris and Ida, to beloved sister of the late Estelle and Eugene, aunt of Michelle and Harry, and of course, Fred. There's a beautiful story that an angel is sent to earth to find the most beautiful thing possible. And so the angel comes down and sees a beautiful rose and clips it and takes it back to heaven. And then the angel comes back and sees a beautiful sleeping baby and takes it to heaven. And then the angel comes down a third time and travels to and fro and finally sees a mom taking care of her son and daughter. Only the way that a mom could do growing up in Des Plaines. And she scooped up that mom and took it to heaven. And so it finally came down to, so what is the most beautiful thing? That baby that was so beautiful that was sleeping woke up and was a holy terror. And that beautiful rose, once it was snipped from the vine, wilted. And so the sages say that the only thing as beautiful in heaven as it is on earth is the love of a mom taking care of her beautiful children. And so that was Helen in so many wonderful ways. And so in different sections, children, grandchildren, each one of you, you have the great honor of standing up here today to begin to pay tribute. And it doesn't have to be every word. It doesn't have to be that you have to be the definitive statement of your mom or your grandmother, because you have the rest of your lives to honor her. And we know that you all will. But as you come up here today to paint a picture, to honor Helen, we look to your words for comfort. So we begin with Mark and Jean. You got this.
When I walked in, I saw my cousin, Millie, Debbie, and Mark. And I said, this is really just an awful way to have a family reunion. And just looking over, I'm just reminded of 39 years ago in March, when my father buried his mother right here. How emotional he was. And it just hit me, what it's like to bury your mother and how hard it is. So just bear with me, and I'm glad you're all here. Just give me strength. I'd like to thank you all for coming today. I would also like to thank all of you on behalf of our families who reached out via phone, text, and cards to inquire how my mother was doing, to express your best wishes for a speedy recovery, as well as your condolences after learning she had passed, to offer to bring meals, or just to come and sit and talk. Your displays of friendship and concern and grief were greatly appreciated. My mother was never one to fuss over herself, but I think she'd be delighted to knowing all of you are here in person or online to honor and remember her and to celebrate her life. It's hard to believe that a little over 9 months ago, I was standing in front of a good number of you, welcoming you to my daughter Jill's wedding. And now I'm standing up here today, welcoming you to my mother's funeral. My mother looked stunning at Jill's wedding, and she was so happy to be with her family on such a happy occasion. And while it is sad to think she won't be with us physically for the next Simcha, we know she will always be with us in memory. My mother was an amazing woman. A comment we heard continually over the last 5 years was, "Your mother is incredible." People were astounded by the fact that despite having type 2 diabetes and renal failure, she lived independently, drove herself to kidney dialysis 3 days a week, could maneuver her walker like a Formula One race car driver, and had a mind as sharp as a tack. I described her as a tough old bird. But she really had us fooled, though, didn't she? With diabetes and renal failure, we knew she couldn't live forever. However, her ability to self-manage these ailments so easily made them seem less life-threatening than they were. And after a while, you just expected her to be there. Even though she was sick, she didn't act sick, or talk, or complain about her ailments. To me, this is why it's so hard to believe she's gone. Knowing that we can't see or talk to her anymore doesn't seem real. I'm sure over time this reality will sink in, and the pain will lessen. But right now, it still hurts very badly. Growing up, my mother ruled our family. We maintained a democratic process by which my dad, Janet, and I each had 1 vote, but my mother had 4. Thinking back on it now, it is amazing how many 4-3 votes we lost. A common phrase you hear after someone loses a loved one is, "May her memory be a blessing," or "May memories of happier times be a source of comfort." One of the great things about living 89 and a half years is you have many opportunities to make impactful and lasting memories. We've had a wonderful time as a family over the last few days telling Grandma and Grandpa stories, because for almost all of our lives, they were inseparable. I have so many fond memories of my mother. She was the most important person and biggest influence of my life. And as much as I'd like to deny it, I was a mama's boy. I will miss my mother tremendously. My fondest memory of my mother was as a little boy, crawling into her bed on a weekend morning and cuddling with her and hearing her say, "How did you get to be so cuddly?" I have fond memories of my mother doting over me, treating me like a prince, cooking only foods I liked, never making me eat vegetables, and treating my various bumps, bruises, and scrapes, or boo-boos as she called them. I have fond memories of watching and learning from my mother as she made volunteering and giving back to the community a top priority. I have fond memories of how my mother instilled the importance of Judaism into our lives. Wouldn't under any circumstance, none, allow us to quit Hebrew or religious school. Turned every holiday meal into a banquet and showed us the importance of always belonging to a synagogue. I have fond memories of family vacations my mother planned. For a while, it seemed like every vacation centered around an amusement park, as we visited Six Flags over St. Louis, Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, and Kings Island in Cincinnati. Other family trips that I remember my mother planning including visiting Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, Los Angeles and Disneyland, and San Francisco. I have fond memories of working side by side with my parents in their Just Pants stores after they moved us to Huntsville, Alabama, and learning the value of hard work from them. I have fond memories of when my mother became a grandmother for the first time, how excited and happy she was, how excited she was to have 3 more grandchildren, and how she was always willing to babysit or attend her grandchildren's events. I have fond memories of how my mother cared for my father during his times in and out of the hospital, never complaining. I have fond memories of how a new, strong, independent woman emerged after my father passed. And finally, I have fond memories of all the time I was able to spend with my mother after I retired from banking 4 years ago. Today is a sad day, but it is also a celebration of a life well lived. My mother started kidney dialysis around 5 years ago. Yes, it was incredible that she drove herself to the Glen 3 days a week for dialysis. But I think it is more important to consider all the milestones that the success of dialysis allowed her to share in over those 5 years. In no particular order, my mother witnessed Jill move to New York to be with Adam, advance in her career, marry Adam last August, and get a dog named Charlie that Grandma met last Thanksgiving and took an immediate liking to. Lauren Mary Zusi graduated from Loyola Medical School and began her residency at Loyola Hospital. Zusi also started and graduated from Loyola Medical School and his recent match for residency at the University of Chicago Hospital. Jeffrey graduated from the University of Alabama, moved to Atlanta, and began an advance in his career in commercial real estate. Marcy graduated from the University of Missouri, graduated from Iona College with her master's in speech therapy, and started her career in speech therapy. Jean and I, and Janet and Lewis, celebrate our 30th wedding anniversaries. We are so blessed my mother was here for these milestones. In February, while we were together as a family on vacation, Jill and Jeffrey decided they would come home for Passover. We had no idea this would be the last Passover we celebrated with my mother as a family. We were so fortunate to be with her on Friday and Saturday night and to create one last amazing memory. Before I close, I would like to thank my niece, Dr. Lauren Bloomberg, for all her medical guidance and advice regarding my mother's care. Lauren communicated with my mom's doctors, offered her thoughts as to care, and let me open up to her and cry on her shoulder about how scared and concerned I was about my mother's condition, all while grieving for her grandmother. Lauren was truly a rock star over the last several weeks, and I was so glad she was there for us. I love you so very much. Although our hearts are broken and my mother will be sorely missed, please let's remember she lived a great life, surrounded by people who loved her, living in a place she loved. The next time you have a chance, please raise a glass and toast my mother to a life well lived. L'chaim. Thank you for bearing with me.
The other day, while sitting on the patio in our backyard, a favorite spot of Helen's, a number of memories surfaced. I'm going to share some of these. Going back to the mid-'80s, when I was Mark's girlfriend, we were expected for dinner on many Sunday nights. Helen always served plenty of food. She wanted to make sure her guests were well fed. After Fred passed,
Gene, something's wrong with Harry. Hang on.
Wendy,
Gene, hang on.
I will.
Wrong with Harry.
Wendy.
Oh, I thought it was Harry. Sorry.
She's okay. She's right there. We can continue.
She okay?
After Fred passed, we found ourselves 3 decades later hosting Helen at our table for most Sunday night dinners. When Jill and Jeffrey were young, Helen and Fred came to child sit several times so Mark and I could take vacations. Grandma and Grandpa were great about taking them to their respective activities and managed to incorporate extra fun. Helen was an organized woman. She was a planner. She often asked me what my menu was for Rosh Hashanah and Thanksgiving before I had given it much thought. I could ask her when the high holidays fell each year before I attempted to Google. She had the answer, always thinking ahead. Helen was an independent woman, straightforward, had a mind of her own, a scheduler, and always arrived promptly. Helen put herself together nicely, owned lots of clothes, and her glasses collection. She managed to coordinate her glasses with her outfits. Helen and Fred were regulars at the Glenview Library, and they had their share of book purchasing at Costco. Helen was a reader of books and newspapers and watched a lot of news. It was pretty much a guarantee at Sunday night dinners that she would ask, "Did you see the article about so-and-so in the Tribune?" Or, "The story about so-and-so on the news?" The grandchildren were their pride and joy up until the end of Helen's life. She always wanted the latest updates on all 4 and the spouses. No matter the quantity of the food eaten when dining out with Helen and Fred, they both found room to order dessert. They usually both ordered sorbet. And last week, Helen was still ordering sorbet off the hospital menu. I will miss Helen telling me, "Hand me a towel," while cleaning up dinner dishes. She wanted to be helpful in the kitchen, her way of contributing to the meal, even if she brought over dessert that night. The daily check-in phone calls when Helen answers the phone and says, "Hi, how are you?" will be no longer. We will miss sharing the happenings in our day.
Grandchildren, Jill, Jeffrey, and Adam.
When I was little, I couldn't pronounce my Grandma Helen's name, so she affectionately became known as Grandma Hen. Although Hen was simply easier for a 2-year-old to pronounce, the nickname was also quite fitting. After hatching eggs, a hen's priority is protecting and ensuring survival of her young chicks and teaching them skills until they are mature. Merriam-Webster defines a mother hen as a person who assumes an overly protective maternal attitude. And while I wouldn't go so far as to call Grandma Helen overly protective, she was innately maternal, and family was always her number one priority. Jeffrey and I were fortunate enough to grow up living just 20 minutes away from Grandma Helen and Grandpa Fred. They attended every birthday party, sporting event, and recital, and regularly babysat us. The best was when Jeffrey and I stayed overnight at their place. We would wake up to the smell of Grandma's French toast coming from the kitchen, watch cartoons and White Sox games, eat candy to our heart's content, and cap off the day with a visit to Old Country Buffet, where not one green vegetable could be found on our plates. It was a kid's paradise. Growing up, we celebrated all the Jewish holidays with Grandma. She was always one of the first people to arrive at high holiday services, and she'd hold seats for the family as we were circling around the block in search of a coveted parking spot. When Jeffrey and I were in the junior choir at Am Shalom, Grandma and Grandpa came to every Friday night service to watch us sing, usually followed by a late dinner at Max and Benny's. From Shabbat dinners to breakfast to meals in the Steinberg Sukkah, Grandma was always there. During the pandemic, she even figured out how to use Zoom so she could join our seders. Last month, Jeffrey and I came into town for Passover, and we were able to finally have an in-person seder as a family. Grandma brought her haroset, a longtime favorite of mine and the biggest hit at the meal. Before I left to go back to New York, she gave me her recipe, which I will forever attempt to replicate. The last few years that I've lived in New York made it harder to see Grandma, but she always found ways to stay in touch. I will miss the Hallmark cards that she sent on birthdays and holidays, her signature, "Hi, how are you?" when answering my phone calls, and most recently, her comments on my Instagram stories. Talk about a hip grandma. One of the few silver linings of the pandemic was the 6 months that Adam and I spent living with my parents in Glencoe. Grandma came over for dinner every Sunday night, which was more time than I had been able to spend with her in years. It will also always mean so much to me that she was able to build a relationship with Adam and that she was at our wedding last August. And although she didn't have any great-grandchildren, Adam and I were able to introduce her to our puppy, Charlie, over Thanksgiving. At that point, Charlie was almost too big to be a lap dog already, but she still wasted no time pulling him onto her lap for cuddles. "How's Charlie?" became the immediate second question she would ask me on the phone, and we will miss giving her updates and sending her pictures. There are so many things I will remember about Grandma Helen, but most of all, I will always remember and admire her incredible strength, confidence, and independence. My grandpa's passing 6 years ago was the end of an era, but the beginning of a beautiful new chapter for Grandma, where she thrived in the community she built at the Mather. Though she dealt with chronic medical conditions, she managed them on her own, like so many other parts of her life, and never once complained. During the pandemic, she refused our offers to go to the store for her and insisted on doing her own shopping. She was sharp as a tack, organized, and deliberate, always knowing exactly what she wanted. She truly embodied girl power and was an amazing role model for her 3 granddaughters. One of my childhood favorites, Winnie the Pooh, once said, "How lucky am I to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard?" This quote has always stuck with me because it provides us with a chance to reflect on how blessed our lives have been. I feel incredibly lucky to have had Grandma Hen in my life for almost 30 years. The older I grew, the more I could appreciate our relationship. Saying goodbye is so hard, but I will cherish our memories forever, and her spirit will live on in all of us.
I invite Marcy, Lauren, and Janet.
On February 25th, my husband Lou lost his father. So 2.5 months later, we are now burying my mother. It's a very hard, difficult time for the Steinberg family. My mother was an amazing lady who truly was one kind of a tough cookie, as we all know. My love of reading comes from both of my parents. In junior high, I read the most books in my class, and my mom was so proud of me when I won an award. My mom and I passed the love of reading to my children. In 2020, during the beginning of the pandemic, my mom, Marcy, and I would read the same book and have our book club discussion outside on the patio of Mather Place, which was usually followed by a game of Rummy Cue. One of my favorite memories with my mom is when you and Dad met Lou for the first time. My parents were so excited as he is one of the nicest guys, and they were so proud of us getting married. I will never forget how special it was going shopping for my wedding dress. You cried tears of joy when we found the perfect dress. That beautiful moment is the one I've always cherished. When I had Lauren and Marcy, she had such great pride in being a grandmother to her wonderful granddaughters. When Sparky joined our family, the bond we had with both my parents was unconditional. My mom grew up as a child having many pets and would sneak her favorite dogs inside and hide them in cupboards when the weather got bad. When Sparky was a young puppy, she held him like a baby and spoiled him. He still expects all of us to treat him with the love and devotion. It was always so special having my mom and dad over for Shabbat dinner every week. My mother loved her Judaism and sharing these traditions with her grandchildren. My parents were able to meet many of our close friends and being part of our Jewish community. During benching, my mom would tell Sparky as she held him to lay Kepi on her shoulder. In 2016, following my father's death, Lauren was beginning medical school. At her white coat ceremony, my mother told Lauren Grandpa was so proud of her. He had always called her Dr. Lauren. When Zusi joined our family, my mom was so excited to have 2 doctors in the family. The pride she had when Zusi matched for residency at the University of Chicago was truly pure joy. Lauren was her first grandchild to get married, and my mom couldn't have been happier. When you saw my mom on the stage at the Kabbalah Panim, she was beaming with joy as she loved being a part of all the Jewish traditions. My mom and I were both active in Hadassah, and my parents and I would go to the national conferences together. We always had so much fun. Growing up, my mom gave me the confidence to be a leader, as she was a leader in many organizations. I did follow her footsteps as I also became president of many organizations. She showed me how to be organized, run successful programs. These last 2 years have been trying for everyone. We all had to trying to get through this pandemic. During the fall of 2021 until recently, I would go and visit my mom at Mather Place so we could play her favorite game, Rummy Cube. What was so nice about going is she liked to make me lunch and hot tea. That was our favorite drink. I will continue to think of all the great memories we had, just us with my dad and my family. Death leaves a heartache no one can heal. Love leaves a memory no one can steal. Let me just want to stand there for a moment, I guess. Sure. All right. Thank you.
Okay. My earliest childhood memory with Grandma Helen was when she was blow drying her hair and would turn the blow dryer to me and do my hair right next to her. I felt so loved and wanted to be by her side, even in the simplest small moments. One of my last memories is a voicemail that she left for Zusi and me after his medical school match day. You could feel her excitement through the phone when she said, "Good luck on your terrific future. All of my love and all of my good wishes, Grandma Helen." Through everything in between, she loved her grandchildren and was so proud of all four of us. I'm blessed to have grown into a young adult with her, shared so many joyous memories, and learned many things from her amazing qualities. I'm most grateful for our time around the Shabbat dinner table. Grandma Helen was determined, smart, had a great sense of humor, and meant the world to me. We'll all miss her deeply. Zichrono livracha. Grandma, I truly believe that Grandpa has been with you throughout these last few years. Angels are everywhere guiding us through life's journey. Angel numbers are small clues that hold deep significance in our lives. An angel number is a number sequence that repeats multiple times in your lifetime. Grandpa Fred passed away at 2:15 a.m. and you, Grandma, at 2:15 p.m. The meaning behind the number 2 has significance of harmony in relationships with others. The number 1 signifies moving forward in a positive manner. The number 5 symbolizes personal freedom and major life changes. Together as 215, we learn an encouraging message that through new beginnings, you continue making powerful choices in your life regarding transitions in your love life and family affairs. As the great Rav Nachman said, "Kasher at birada tada shidoka ashav borei olam karov elacha biyoter." When you're in descent, know that especially now the Lord is closest to you. I find this quote from Rabbi Nachman to encompass your neshama's departure. Grandma, your soul is now reunited with Grandpa, and I know you both will continue to be with all of us. I love you.
Eshet Chayil mi nimsa, a woman of valor who can find. She is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her. Some even say they were glued at the hip from the day they met at Roosevelt College. You heard such beautiful words from family. Literally, children and grandchildren rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you, Helen, you excel above them all. You've heard so many beautiful words. I just want to add, here's a woman who worked for the Spiegel catalog, Des Plaines Bank, and at Just Pants. And she was one of the most dedicated volunteers we've ever had at the Am Shalom Library. She volunteered for Hadassah. She loved to babysit. She helped build the Maine Township Jewish Center. She was acknowledged by WJJD as the Woman of the Day. She never suffered fools. And even in these last 2 years, she was a COVID renegade who found any way she could to get out, to eat, to celebrate, to sneak out of the mather. A few weeks ago, when her heart started to fail, she herself called 911. Need I say any more? That was Helen. She was great at FaceTiming. She was pretty hip on Instagram. And she smiled till the very end. When she looked across the Shabbat table at Janet, she smiled a smile that you'll carry with you forever. When she smiled at the junior choir and at every congregational dinner that we offered, she was always the first one there. And she loved coming to temple. She blossomed. I will picture her great clothes, her beautiful glasses. And even after he died, she was free to live her life on her own terms. And she did, making friends till the very end. I love that your mom taught you to be a leader. And here are 2 children both involved in synagogues, both involved in the Jewish community, both committed to the future of Judaism, because you learned that from your mom. I'm so glad that she taught you to have confidence in Judaism, confidence in yourself, and to do anything for the love of being Jewish. Even though she disliked religious school, she made you. She made you go. She made you love it. And you've all done that so beautifully. If it was a Kala or a Jewish dance or BBYO or Camp Coleman, she didn't stop at anything to make sure that you were happy and that you were Jewish. Hannah Senesh said in a beautiful poem that she wrote, "O Lord my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, and the prayers of our hearts." I hope and pray that all of you will carry the incredible stories you heard from grandchildren and children. I hope and pray that you will carry with you those memories, those thoughts of a truly wonderful human being. And as the tent kind of flaps in the wind, the Hebrew word for wind is the same word as spirit, ruach. And so we feel her wind, we feel her ruach, we feel her spirit, not just here, but everywhere. Thank you for sharing the prayers from your hearts.
Eli, Eli, שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם. Eli, Eli, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
In the Am Shalom prayer book on Shabbat mornings, there's a beautiful passage by Merit Malloy, which we often quote, that Helen loved. When I die, if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need to give me something, give him what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children who need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. I hope and pray that you'll remember so many of the beautiful words today. But if nothing else, I hope that you remember that last line. Love doesn't die, people do. And so we hold on to that love. We return the body to the earth, but the spirit, the soul, the ruach, the wind, isn't here at Westlawn Cemetery. It's going to be wherever we feel her presence. It'll be at the Shabbat dinner table. It'll be in the Yam Shalom library. It'll be at the Mather. It'll be at so many other places that we encounter along the way. Places that she loved, like White Sox Park. As we cover the casket, we will put one quick level of earth over the casket, sealing it here at this family burial plot. And then we will recite the prayer, asking for God to watch over her soul. And then once that's done, we will continue the burial process. To please ask that you don't overextend yourself and you drink lots of water. Do you hear me? You drink lots of water and make sure that you stay hydrated. And men, feel free to take off your jackets if you're shoveling earth, as we want everyone to be healthy. But we will begin the burial process. We live in a world where so often when we do something for someone, it might be said, well, what will I get in return? When it comes to death, we ask for and want nothing in return. We want to give to Helen one final time because she gave so much to us. And so we begin with first the back of the shovel, reluctant to have to do this mitzvah, and then with the full shovel, beginning it. Although the earth is very, very heavy here at Westlawn, you're also feel free to just pick up a clump with your own hand and place it into the grave as well. And then once there's enough earth in the grave, together we will say the mourner's Kaddish. We have the opportunity to gather with the family tonight at Am Shalom, immediately after the service till 9 o'clock tonight. Tomorrow, both at Darchei Noam and at Am Shalom from 6 to 9, and Tuesday through Thursday from 6 to 9 with minions at 7:50. May her memory truly be a blessing. Come forward to begin the burial process. Place the shovel back in the earth when you're done, as we do not pass our grief from person to person. Grandchildren? Friends, anyone who wants to come forward can participate.
everyone to please be careful around the grave. Ground is not level.
And Dad is still, coming down to No, I have my suitcase out. Well, we do have to take some more pressing things. Full week. Full. Yes. Yeah, it's good. Papa had these people. No.
And we're gonna just pause for a moment to offer the traditional prayers, and then anyone who wants to can participate in the burial, and we can end the live stream as well. So.
This is the Kel Male Prayer. We have a tradition that the final act of kindness, as the rabbi mentioned, an honor that we can show to a person in this world, is to care for their burial needs and to bring them to a Kvuras Yisrael, to a proper Jewish burial. And it's at that moment that we perform that mitzvah, that their neshama, their soul, returns to Hashem. And therefore, we waste no time in saying a prayer for the soul of Helen, that her soul should rest peacefully in comfort, with pride and nachas from the family she leaves in this world. El Male Rachamim Shochein Bamiromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei HaShechina B'Ma'alos Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Harakiya Mazirim Es Nishmas Chana Bas Moshe V'Hadol Shalcha Liolama Bavur Shanachnu Mispalalim Biaraz Karas Nishmasa Began Eden Tehei Menuchasa Lachein Balarachamim Yastirea Beseser Kanafav Liolamim Vitzror Bitzror Achayim Es Nishmasa Adonai Hu Nachalasa Vesanuach Beshalom Amishkava Venomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence. Tachana, which means beautiful and gracious, who has entered eternity. May she find refuge forever under the shadow of God's wings. May her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. And together we say we join with Helen's children in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael B'agala b'zman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach le'olam omei omaya Yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yita'ar v'yitlaman v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei dekudshah b'richu La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu be'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu be'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen.
Friends, we ask that this ends the live stream, but those of you who are here, there's still a lot of earth. We'd love to be able to do it ourselves, to be able to to not rely on equipment, to do it with our own hands. And I think we have enough people here that we can do that. So we'll take turns and we will continue the burial process and we will honor her. Please join us tonight at Am Shalom, tonight and tomorrow at Darchei Noam. May her memory truly be a blessing. Amen. We had earth from the land of Israel, hoping and praying for a world truly at peace.